Hey YouTube, it's Brent from New Do Review. This is going to be like a bookshelf book review, like a follow-up for the reading list that I put out in an article on the website. But I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to showcase the bookshelf where I keep my books. I'm going to show you how I stack and organize the books. As you can see, there's books on the shelf already, but man, I can fit a whole lot more books on the shelf. And behind the camera, you can't see this because you're watching this, but there's a ton of books on a table right behind you that are gonna fit on the shelf. All of it can fit. So I think that's fun because I get pleasure, in a weird way, stacking the books and manipulating them, moving them around so I can fit new books on the shelf. I think it's kind of fun, so I want to share that enjoyment with you. But I'm also going to be talking about the books as well, very briefly. Each book's, I'll say a little bit about it. Sorry if I don't look directly at the camera like this. I'm still new. I'm not very good on camera. But we're going to do this all in one take, in the spirit of the book I'm going to show you. Because you got to do it all in one go. That's the way it is. Being an ex-musician, I guess you could say, there's something in the power of just delivering one continuous piece of content or music. I don't know. Anyways, so the book we're gonna look at is Bret the Hitman Hart. I got this in December of last year, and I read it in January of this year. What can we say about Bret Hart that hasn't already been said? I was watching last night a YouTube video about the top 50 champions of the WWF, or now WWE, and Bret Hart was in the top 10. The reason he was in the top 10, I think he was actually within the top 3. I totally forget. Maybe I'll link the video in the below if I find it, or comment me, do a comment, and I'll try and figure it out. Anyways. The reason why he was considered one of the best wrestlers, or the best champions, is how much respect he gave the belt, and the respect he gave to the whole business. And it comes out in this book. He brings you into his own psyche to show you why and how he respected the business. And I thought that was just extremely profound. Wrestling as a physical sport, but also as an entertainment, like a fine art, I guess you could say. With my music background, I see wrestling in a different way than I did when I was younger. There was a period of time when I didn't watch wrestling at all. After my teen years, I thought it was kind of silly and hokey. But as I got older and went through my education and went through music and stuff, I began to realize how powerful wrestling was as an entertainment. I see it as a fine art, to be perfectly honest. A perfectly crafted performance that has all the bells and whistles of a theatrics, lighting, sound guys, production people, all of it. It's a juggernaut of art. In a way, the performance is incredible, and that's why I'm doing this all in one take. Because when you're in the ring, you wrestle, you get one shot. That is it. So yeah, I'm just trying to have the spirit of that. But yeah, back to the book. Like, it's incredible. He talks about his life, bringing it close into all the special events of his career, the Montreal screw job, the Hart Foundation, his early career as a wrestler in the Stampede days in Calgary. All of it's there, and it brings you just so close into his life, and you really do get the sense that this was a man that he loved wrestling so passionately, and that's why he's the best there ever will be, in my opinion. And I guess also being a fellow Canadian, there's a little bit of bias. Maybe a lot. Come on, who can't resist? The patriotism that Canada has for their own wrestlers. But being a kid in the '90s watching Bret Hart wrestle, man, it was something else. Like, holy smokes, when he got in the ring, like you you believed and it was something special. So reading this later in life after having experienced Bret Hart in the 90s, oh man, it was really good, and I got a lot out of this. And you know, to speak more about my music experience and fine arts, I really see the wrestling business in a different light, and it's all thanks to Bret Hart. So you're going back on the shelf, man. So we're gonna put it right. It fits nicely right here, if you can see. So I have to sort of have these books I have them by shape, just so I can stack them. So that's the first one. What else are we gonna put in there? All right, so we're gonna cut and we'll get back to you. All right, so we're back. So the next two books that we're gonna put in there, I'm gonna choose two because it fits really nicely. The funny thing is with these books, they're not going back into their normal place. I'm just gonna see what happens as I put them back in. So the two books I got here are Stephen Hawking's Black Holes and Baby Universes and Other Essays, and The Happiness Trap. So this Stephen Hawking, this is more of, I guess it feels more like a biography in a way. He touches on some of his science concepts, but it's more like a biography. And I think it's really interesting to have him talk about his struggle with his health, and how he grew up and how he saw the world as a younger person, because the times are different, you know, back in the mid 20th century, I guess now. Like, holy smokes, where are we now? So it's really interesting to see that. And it's much different than his other book. I have it up here on the shelf, A Brief History of Time. It's very different than that, but it's a great read, and I enjoyed it. And then The Happiness Trap. We all struggle with anxiety and depression and all that. I feel some people struggle more with it, but I think that this is a condition that is going to be more talked about as we go forward in time with social media and how much we're connecting with each other. A weird thing is that when we see all these things in the news, tragedies, it's not that the world is getting maybe worse. It's that we're more connected than we've ever have been, and we're just seeing more of it, I think. So living in the 21st century with the digital life, it causes anxiety, I feel. At least it causes me anxiety, and I think learning about it and understanding what happiness means, how to work with ACT, which is it's like a therapy technique of accepting negative thoughts and getting through your mental processes and blocks. So it's a good little book that helps you reanalyze your life, look at what's important, help you cope with just, you know, what's going on. So I thought that was important. It's actually a reread. I've had this book for a long time, and I chose to reread it this year. You know, just because why not? There's things that you pick up on the second reads, third reads. You know, you can read books more than once, just like watching movies more than once. So there it is. It's gonna fit right beside Mr. Bret Hart, and that fits quite nicely actually. So that's really cool that we were able to reorganize the books. So the books feel tight, except right in here I could probably fit one more book. So I'm gonna cut and we'll get right back. All right, so we're back. So hey, the next book I'm not gonna put it in here, but I'm gonna put it underneath, because I've you can't see it, but underneath here is just music books, just all music textbooks and all that. So this is a music book called Making Music Your Business. Hold on. A Guide for Young Musicians by David Ellefson. If you don't know who David Ellefson is, he is the bassist for Megadeth. So this is kind of funny because I saw this book in a music store locally it was like 1999. That's when I started playing bass. And it was there on the shelf. It was like part of their, music books and stuff. And so I remember flipping through it in the store and just kind of looking at it and being like, oh, cool, this is really interesting. I should have bought it back then, because a lot of this stuff in this book apply right now. Not in every way. Technology has changed a lot, but the fundamentals are still there. It's all networking. It's really just people. People are the music business. Technology is really just a means to get your music out there with the YouTube platforms, the streaming services, Spotify. It's all it's just a tool. But really, in the end, it's people that are part of the business, and that's what this book touches on. It talks about networking and stuff. The most interesting thing I found was that David Ellefson moved to Los Angeles, I believe. I should probably, it doesn't matter. Anyways, he moved to a cultural hub of music to basically make it. And that's an interesting thing, because for me as a musician living on Vancouver Island, you feel kind of stuck, I guess. You need a ferry to get off that island to go play music. So reading about a famous bass player who moved to a big city, LA, to become famous and did, is an interesting example, because you have to be where the action is. You can't be in an area with your... I mean, we don't have to talk about music. We can talk about like any sort of art, whatever art you do, because you may not be a musician. That's another thing to consider. You need to be where the action is for your discipline. Yeah, let's just call it discipline. So he moved to LA because the music was big there, and that's where all the Hollywood stuff was going on. So you got to be where the action is. And so that's what I got out of this book, is he went where the action was and just got into it. He met Dave Mustaine, and they made Megadeth, and that's sort of history. I mean, there's more to it, but that's kind of what it is. So there you go. Make music your business. I think the name could have been better, or making music your anyways. All right, you're gonna go right back in. Oh my God. There we go. Okay. Whew! Cut. All right, so we're back. The next book we're going to talk about is Beyond Einstein: The Cosmic Quest for the Theory of the Universe by Dr. Michio Kaku and Jennifer Trainer. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm sorry. I got this in the summer to use bookstore. It was funny because I walked into the bookstore and I went to the science section. I kind of knew what I was going to get, and I saw this on the ground and I picked it up. I looked at the price. Oh, $6. Boom! I got it. I didn't even think about it. I just picked it up and bought it. This is a fascinating book. It's a little outdated, only because it was written in 1987. So it's almost as old as me, or it's actually as old as, yeah, well, anyways. It talks about a lot of cool stuff with relativity and Einstein's theories, and how Einstein's theories have spawned a whole generation of physics and thought and, I guess, cosmology. Sorry, I don't know too much about this. I like it. But that's what this book talks about. Is it goes through how Einstein sets foundations, and a lot of, along with his contemporaries. I can't think of his contemporaries at this exact moment, but it's like a quest of how knowledge evolves and changes into what they had at 1987. Things have changed fantastically since then too, but it's nice to read at least to understand the fundamentals, I guess. So this book represents at least a foundation of a piece of knowledge to do with general relativity and cosmology and physics and all that. So it was a really good read, not hard to understand, very intuitive. It was written very well, actually, almost like a story. Like when you're reading it, it's like he's telling you a story of physics, and really great book. The Dr. Michio Kaku, if you've probably seen him in those space videos. He's got like gray hair that kind of flows back. I think he's Japanese. I'm sorry, I don't know his ethnicity. But that would help you know who he is, and he's really cool. He talks about a lot of like futurist stuff about how civilization grows off a planet. Yeah, he's a cool guy. Really great book, and it's gonna fit right in here. It's going to be a tough... Yes, look at that. So this is stacked about as tight as I could probably stack it. So this is cool. All right, we're going to cut. Okay, we're back. All right, so the next books we're going to talk about, I'm going to talk about them all as a whole because I'm going to fill them up in this area. All right, let's start with Jurassic Park. Look at this. This is actually the first edition book, I believe. Yeah, 1990. So this is cool. I got this when I was a kid, shortly after Jurassic Park came out. I think I got this for Christmas. And in the article, I kind of touted this as being sort of the keystone of the whole reading list. And I still think it is. I mean, even though Bret Hart was probably maybe more impactful, I guess, in a way. But actually, I mean, all these books really were just sensational. Like it was really cool. I had a good year of reading. Let's just put it like that. But Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton as an author is so infectious. The way he writes, how he has, how he crafts the dialogue, the format of how it looks on the page. You just like I've read this book. I reread it in a few settings. Like it took me a few days. I just sat there and I just read through the book. By the evening, I was like, oh man, I'm already like at page 200. Like holy smokes, how did I cruised right through it. So he's a fantastic writer. So if you haven't read this book, you absolutely need to read this because there's themes in this book that apply right now. We're in a period of time where technology is advancing so quickly. So many things are coming out, platforms, social media, that it's giving people a certain power that they may not understand. Now, I don't mean that negatively. I'm trying to connect that into this book because the point of this book is the scientists. This was Ian Malcolm's criticism: is that the scientists they just did the next step. They copied people's work and just took the next step with all the funding for the park and everything. And so, I guess Ian Malcolm's point is that they didn't earn the respect of that knowledge, and so they didn't completely understand the repercussions of them making dinosaurs in a park. And eventually, I mean, we've all seen the story. There's no spoilers. The park fails. So Ian Malcolm is absolutely right within the context of this book that the scientists did not understand the power they were wielding of bringing back dinosaurs in that time frame and in the environment that they made for them. So with this, it's interesting because some of the themes translate to now. I don't know if we completely understand what we have now today with technology. We do. I think we do. It's not. We're not going to make a doomsday thing or anything, but I think this is a good message to attempt to understand in a sense that you need to earn the knowledge and understand it so that you can wield it properly and have it not blow up in your face, I guess. That's sort of what you can say. So Jurassic Park, yeah, you absolutely need it. So it's going to go there. Sphere by Michael Crichton. So I went through kind of like a Michael Crichton phase. This is an incredible book. Maybe just as impactful as Jurassic Park, but not. I guess it's the number 2 for me. It's interesting because of the themes of. I don't want to spoil this one because it's not as well known as Jurassic Park, but it's still there's a movie about it and all that stuff. But it talks about the manifestation and what you think becomes reality, and that's so interesting now because we're starting to understand more of ourselves and our own human psyche and our own ability to manifest our reality by focusing on what you love and what you want to do. And so this book touches within that theme, and a lot of other great stuff happens. It's a great page turner. Like I read this in a few sittings too. Like I would just by the end of the night I'm like, wow, I'm on this page. Like I gotta go to bed. So there it is. I'm gonna put this right up in here, I think. Now we got Rising Sun by Michael Crichton as well too. I crushed this book in a few days. Like I just ate it for breakfast. It was so well done, and the movie was made, of course, well as well. This is better than the movie for sure. The movie's pretty good, but this takes you deeper into the underlying themes of this, which what can we say? In the book, there's Japanese businessmen that treat business like war. Now, that just as a concept it's pretty deep, because right now there's a movement of people becoming entrepreneurs, young people, teenagers even, making money in their bedroom doing the Shopify drop shipping stuff. So people are becoming businesses themselves. And so if business is war, if you run with that concept as a premise, we're at war with each other for business. And so read this book, because it gives you an insight into how the Japanese do business and how their business actions outside of Japan in another country in the United States within this book, how that works out. So that's pretty cool, right? So you've got the tradition of Japanese business people in their home country, and transplant that into the United States. What happens? How does that pan out? So this story kind of takes those ideas and pans them out for you and shows you what happens through kind of like a murder mystery, basically. And that's it's pretty cool. So you should really get this. This is a good one. I guess it's kind of underrated too. I didn't really mention too much about it in the article. So we're going to fit it right here, and then we're going to just quickly cut, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back. So I kind of had to move the camera. I had to plug the cord in. It was losing battery. I think we're still good. Okay, good. All right, so here we are. Let's see what I can fit. I have to try and fit this. Okay, so Ernest Hemingway, Old Man and the Sea. I read this in, I think it was in high school. Okay, so Ernest Hemingway, in my opinion, it's just how I see literature and novels and writing. Ernest Hemingway is probably one of the best writers of the entire 20th century. The reason for that is the simplicity of his writing and how he writes and formats the story. There's a lot been written about it already. I'm not going to kind of get too deep with it, but he takes great care to reduce as much as possible only the important things of what you would need in a story, and the rest should unfold through you the reader. As you read this, he omits a lot of things that some writers would write into a story, but he doesn't. He edits. Editing is the most important thing when you consider what Hemingway is as a writer. He takes out things so that you fill in the blanks. You get to go deeper and sort of make up your own interpretation of his writing. And that's what makes him so great as a writer. And The Old Man and the Sea is a fantastic example of his writing for that reason, but also in form. This book, there's almost no dialogue in it. It's just the main character sort of talking to himself. And it basically just tells the story that way. And that's very interesting, because think about reading a novel. There's dialogue. There's the quotes that show you that someone is speaking. You don't see that a lot in this book. And that's an interesting thing to see in writing. There's only dialogue really in the beginning and the end, and then sort of in the middle of the book, he talks out loud to the fish, and that's dialogue. But that's it. So if you pick this up and read it, see how the dialogue works. It'll surprise you. It's very interesting. So there it is. I read that fairly quick as well. And another thing too on Hemingway. That was a book I read in high school, and it was the first book that didn't make me feel like I knew how to read. I don't know how to say that properly, or if that's even the right way to say it. His writing didn't make me feel like I had to struggle, and that's the elegance of Hemingway's writing, is that it's so simple, and you know, even a silly high school kid like me could get through that book, and I guess it kind of got me into reading. So that's why I got it again. I picked it up for that reason, because it's sort of sentimental, and it was a reread. So there it is, Hemingway. You gotta, do it. So the next books I'm going to cover, they're going to fit right here too. This is William Gibson's Sprawl series, cyberpunk masterpieces, I would say. These are incredible books. So it's Neuromancer, Mona Lisa Overdrive, and Count Zero. Sorry, you can see this. Oh, there you go. I don't know really what to tell you. These books were so cool to read. I read Neuromancer at the turn of the century, I guess, or like 2003, a long time ago. And I just recently picked up this version of the book. I had another version of this book. I gave it to somebody, and so I got this within the last while. And I've read this. This is my third time reading it. And then I decided to get more into the Sprawl series and read Count Zero and Mona Lisa Overdrive. And, like, wow, it tells a story of technology that it's so vivid. William Gibson writes in such a way that he's creating his own canon of language, if that's a good way to say it. He doesn't spoon feed you the scenes or the story. He just gives it to you like you already know, and that's a really cool thing. So he's not holding your hand. It's like playing, like, say, like a video game. Like, you know how the video games, they have all these tutorials and it shows you exactly what to do. Remember video games when it was just you turn it on and you got to figure out the game? That's what these books are like. And there's an elegance and beauty to that hardship, I guess, in a way. Maybe not a hardship, but where you have to put the pieces together yourself and just struggle with it and just go along with the story. I finally, because I've read this a few times, I was seeing things that I didn't see in the first few reads because my reading skills weren't as strong as they were back then. And so that's why I realized how good of a writer William Gibson really is, and that you don't want to have your hand held sometimes. You just want to get into the language. Some of it doesn't really make sense the first time, but as you get used to the way he writes, how he describes the technology, a lot of the slang is being used. He uses a lot of words that you wouldn't commonly hear to describe technology. And that's what makes these books so strong, in my opinion. And the other thing about this, as I was reading this, I was coming to terms with social media and the internet and how technology is evolving. And it's evolving in a way that these books are describing. And some of the technology in these books are slowly coming true. With there's actually in Count Zero, there's a little bit about some sort of electronic book reader where it can scan a book and immediately give you another copy of the book. I don't know if that's exactly how it is, but that made me think like wow, we've come a long way since when these books were written. If we can just have a quick look into it, see the date. So this was done in 1984. Wow, that's as old as me. So there you go, right? Like we've come quite a long ways with technology. So to read these books again now, you got to do it. Like you'll be able to see a progression of technology. Now the beauty of this series is that it's chronological. So as you get to the next book, Count Zero, it jumps forward in time. It jumps further in time with Mona Lisa Overdrive. So you're seeing a progression of technology within these books too. So you see things grow, characters change. Not all the characters translate through this series, so I think that's interesting. There's a movement of storytelling where characters are really important. We'll use the Marvel Universe as an example. I'm not I don't want to say anything bad about it or anything, but just where characters are more important than the overall story. And I think that is a poor way to craft a story, because if a character is so strong that that can change the story, then I don't think you're telling the story in a good way, because the story as a whole is the most important thing. It's the experience of reading the book. How are you going through the story? Characters are just a part of it. They're, you know, I don't want to put down the importance of characters, but in a way they're kind of furniture. They're a part of the story that you go through, and to place to have those pieces of a story be more important than the story itself just feels a little weird. Now, I'm not saying that that's what Marvel's doing or whatever, because that's their own thing, but that's how the characters work in this series. Is they're used in a way that moves the story forward in the right way. So the main character in the first book, he's not in the rest of the books. His spirit is kind of in there, but he's not held as a sacred part of the story. He's just one piece of it among many other characters. And that's kind of a cool thing. I know that, sorry if this is kind of long-winded and we got off track, but that's what I really got out of this, is that William Gibson crafts the story in a really, really good way. I don't want to say the best way, because there's lots of ways to tell a story. But you really got to check this out and see how he writes and works with the characters, and how the characters are used to tell you the story. And it's really cool to see how technology progresses anyways. I mean, that's kind of blows you away. So we're going to fit them. Let's see if I guess they'll have to fit there. Okay, so I'm going to cut and we're going to get some more books. Okay, we're back. So I got two more books. Another Hemingway book, and Carlos Castaneda's The Teachings of Don Juan, Yagüe, Way of Knowledge. Like, whoa, wow. So I already talked about Hemingway and how powerful his writing was. A Farewell to Arms. I get choked up when I talk about this book, because it's so emotional. This is the only book that I've ever written that I cried after. I wept for the main character. It's just so sad. But that's the power of Hemingway, you know. So I'm kind of getting choked up now, actually. But this is a beautiful story, and it's set in World War I too. So as a piece of classic literature, this is also a nice snippet of the life of the early 20th century. That's almost 100. That's 100 years from now. As we move forward in history, the way we see history and perceive history changes. What's happened, but how we remember it, it gets affected by how we see the world now. And so, sorry, I'm getting all kind of choked up about because of memories of the book and stuff. Anyways, so to read this is a nice way to remember the world wars. So Carlos Castaneda. This is an interesting book. I got really into mystic, occult stuff. If you read the article, you'll see that there's a lot of tarot books in there. I got really interested in that this year. I'm not going to talk about those books in this video, but this is sort of like a keystone for all those books. The angle of this book is sort of anthropology. So if you're into that, this is incredible. But it talks about initiation into I wouldn't say art form, but a way of life. So there's a process of initiation that Carlos writes about and helps you see in an academic way, but also through a story. So he's actually broken the book up into a structural analysis. You can even see it right there. a structural analysis that's more academic, and then the story itself of him working with the shaman, the Mexican shaman, or yeah, the Mexican, I think it is. Sorry if I should reread it again. So this is really interesting. I want to be careful because this book talks about psychedelics. So I want to at least give caution to readers out there. So if you're underage, that's another thing too. YouTube is cracking down on that. So there's a thing about content for underage people. So this book talks about psychedelics. So if you're seeing this, I don't know, be careful with it. If you're a parent and you see this, I mean, you should read it. You're an adult, but this is a pretty powerful book because it tells you how to do things. Yeah, I kind of have to be careful about how I talk about it. But it's a really good book from an anthropology standpoint. So if you're in that academic discipline, you should really check this out. And so for me, it was nice to have this book under my belt while I was working with tarot and all these sort of, I guess, occult things, mystic things, a lot of fun. And so this fit really well. I'm going to try and stuff it. Oh man, I'm going to put it right there. And then, oh, perfect. So the Hemingway is like the keystone right here. And so this whole section is pretty much filled up to the brim. So let's get some more books. All right, we're back. All right, so we had an interlude, I guess you could say. I needed some dinner. I was kind of gassing out. I needed some food. And I filled out the rest of the books here. And we're just going to talk real quick about some of the books. There's some themes that we'll talk about right now about how the books are connecting. And it's not something that you can see if you were to say just read the article or just look at the books. You have to sort of experience them and talk about them to flesh out some of the themes that are in there. So the next book we're going to talk about is a great sales book called Secrets of Closing the Sale by Zig Ziglar. I think you can see that there. It's right here. This is with all my other sales books. I started reading that book in 2018. And as part of my sales training, as part of my advancing my sales career. And I finished the book this year after I read Bret Hart. So it was right in the beginning of the new year. And things all sort of came together after that because I was still lingering from the experiences of having been a part of Bret Hart's life a little bit from his writing. And it made me think about performance and embodying your performance. Because when you think of Bret Hart as a wrestler, he loves and respects the business so much, but as a performer, he embodies his love for wrestling in the ring, and that's what makes you believe what he's doing is possibly real, or that your suspension of belief is suspended. Like you're able to just take a step back and actually buy into the experience of Bret Hart. But he embodies all of that, so that's kind of how you believe him. And him as a sales example is what a true salesman is. They embody what they're selling to you. They completely understand how it can benefit people, and they're able to sell others because of that. And so a good salesman is almost like a good wrestler, a good performer. So if you're in sales, be like Bret Hart. It's a good way to sell your stuff. Because wrestlers, they're masters of psychology and directing attention. As a wrestler, you have to make the audience buy into what you're doing in the ring, because you have to get them out of their home into those seats in the arena and take part in the experience. Just think about that. There's so many things out there in the world that you can experience, but you have to make a choice to go see a wrestling match or tune into it on TV. You have to make that choice. And wrestlers, when they're good and it's done well, they sell it to you. You do it to watch them. And so I love that as an example, and that's something that came at the end of this of reading list experience, is me thinking about how all these books connect. And yeah, Bret Hart is a wrestler in sales. It all just kind of fits together like that, and that's how for me as an ex-musician, I guess you could say, performance and music all fit together like that as well. You have to sell your music and your art to the public. You may not have to make them pay for it, but you have to convince them that what your art is, your music, your dance, whatever artistic expression you have is worth their attention. You have to sell it to them. And that's hard. That's very difficult. That was tough for me to understand at the beginning of my sales career, coming from a fine arts world and an artistic way of life. My thought was the art should sell itself. Going back to that idea. That's a fallacy. I don't think that's correct now, and I can see that it's a mistake to believe that, having done sales and had that experience. You have to work. You have to make people believe that it's worth their time, and if you disrespect that, you lose the audience's trust. So you have to be very careful, and that's why the world of pro wrestling is complex. The world of music, the world of art, it's a complex world because you're dealing with people's attention, and you're dabbling in psychology a little bit. And it's fascinating. And so sales, music, art, it's all one world of attention, and who's directing the attention. And business marketing, that's all about what they're doing too. Traffic, where are the people going? Where are they headed? We can talk about that forever, but we might as well talk about the other books that we're going to stack. And I was talking about that for so long to lead into American Gods, which is a very interesting book. By Neil Gaiman. I finished this in the new year, so I was reading this in December, and I kept reading it into January. So I read this before Bret Hart and before Zig Ziglar, and it led up, and a lot of themes carried into those two books, which I didn't realize at the time. But as I'm having a retrospective on these books, it's all just coming together. You could say a lot about American Gods and what the story means to you and all that. But the way I perceive the story is, it's a story of perception. It's a story of suspending your disbelief, making people believe what you want them to believe. A la wrestling, a la sales. You have to convince somebody else that what they're seeing is true. And in the story, a lot of stuff happens, a lot of cool things happen, but that's kind of one core concept that I found was in the other two books that I read. Magic happens, things like that, unbelievable things happen in this book, but when you take a step back and look at it as a piece of art, or a piece of literature, I should say, is you're reading it and you're trying to believe the story. So there's different levels of perception as well too. I'm reading this and I have to believe that these characters are believable. So there's lots of levels to this book. Because in the story you have your main character Shadow, who is sort of skeptical. He doesn't really believe in magic, but somehow he's convinced that all these things are true. They're really happening through the characters and the American Gods. Now, the beauty of American Gods and what the gods stand for is attention. You have to remember and believe in the gods for them to still be, for them to have their power. So again, you're dealing with attention and perception and what people focus on. And so if you forget about the gods, they don't exist anymore. And it fits nicely as a thematic idea into the Bret Hart story, into sales, because you're dealing with perception. You're having to deal with influence. You have to make people believe things. So you have to believe that gods exist, that their power is in fact real, and if you do believe that, they have the power. So that's what I kind of got out of this book. It's a very long book to read, but it was absolutely worth it. So if you haven't read this book, read this. I have an opinion on books translating into movies. It's complex. I like the books. I like to have read the book. Reading the book before you watch the movie, that kind of, I don't know what's best, because I saw Jurassic Park before I read the book, and it was a better experience because I had the feeling that there was more I was uncovering from the book. So it was almost like finding all these Easter eggs, I guess you could say it. That's a nice term from video games. Anyways. But also realize too that translating a story into film, you can't have everything in a book. In a film, you can't tell the story the same way in film. They're two different things. The convention of film, the convention of literature, they're separate worlds, but they play with the same artistic concepts. So you can't tell this story exactly the way it is in the book on film. So I don't know. I think there's more to say about that as a concept, but I don't know. It's bound to come up because American Gods is on it's on Amazon or whatever streaming platform. So you're thinking, well, why don't I just watch the movie, watch it instead of reading it? No. Read it. There's lots in here. So I'm gonna put this. Oh well, I'm gonna put it right in front of Bret Hart. What a nice little spot to keep that. All right, so we're going to keep going. Well, I won't cut because I brought the books here. So we've got two books, Entangled Minds by Dean Radin and Generation of Swine by Hunter. Actually, Dr. Hunter S. Thompson. That's, yeah, because he's a doctor. I don't know how that happened. Anyways, so this, so Entangled Minds was interesting. It talks about extrasensory experience in the quantum reality. So it talks about global consciousness. So hold on a sec. We'll look at the publication date. So this was done in 2006. So it's not super old, but it is a tad bit outdated because that'd be what 13 years or so. So this would be a good book to read if you're wanting to understand global consciousness and what consciousness is. Cognitive science touches on these concepts a little bit. Sorry, I'm not an expert in that a discipline, so forgive me if that crosses boundaries or anything. But this talks about quantum theories that connect with global consciousness, how our consciousness affects the physical world, and if it does affect the physical world, like it's pretty cool stuff. Finding this book was an interesting story too, because I went back to the island where I grew up, and I went to a used bookstore with a friend, and I ran in real quick because my friend was going to the bank, and I said, hey, I'm going to go to this bookstore that's right beside the bank and just pick up a book real quick. And so I ran into the bookstore, and I was like, hey, where's the science section? Because I knew I wanted a science book, but I didn't know kind of what I wanted. So I go to the section, and bam, I see this, and immediately I just grab it, look at it. Oh, it's $8. Good, I'm done. It was almost like this book was wanting me to find it, like it was calling out to me in some ways, because it just, as soon as I got there, my attention was like immediately drawn to this. So it's kind of weird. So that is a weird story of me getting the book, and reading it was an incredible experience too, because it makes you rethink the world around you. Because if the premise is true that our consciousness affects the physical world, well, that's a pretty heavy-duty implication to carry out. And you could play that into the American Gods perception selling stuff, because that's your reality. You have to make your reality. You have to manifest your reality. That you can connect that to Sphere by Michael Crichton as well too, if you wanted. But yeah, think about that. Does your consciousness affect the physical world? In this book, it talks about the Global Consciousness Project that has random number generators around the world that are meant to be true randomization, that in some cases, they sync up together when world events happen. Like it talks about the 9/11 incident, Princess Diana dying. Those are key world events that showed that randomization was not occurring. Things were lining up, and that's pretty fascinating. There's still lots to uncover because some of this you could claim that it could be conjecture, that it's not quite provable and replicatable and stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's talking real hard science. I don't know too much about that stuff, but I know enough to be dangerous with those words like conjecture. But this is a great book. I think you should pick it up, and it's so applicable to today's world, where we're dealing with social media and we're so connected to everybody in the world that. How do these connections affect reality? Does the digital world affect reality? You could say, yeah, it does, because it influences our actions in the world, and we carry out what's been influenced through the digital world. Maybe that's conjecture. I don't know. But hey, yeah, it's a great book, so check it out. I'm gonna put it. I think I'm gonna put it right here because it looks like it'll fit nicely. Then there's some other books we're going to talk about in just a second. But yeah, let's talk about Generation of Swine by Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson, he's fantastic as a writer, not because of what he writes, but how he writes. I love his style of writing because he puts himself in all of his stories. He is the story. Because it's funny when you read about his experiences writing for news stories and how he was a sports writer. He would never write about he would never report on the actual event. He would report about reporting the event. He would write about his account and his experience of the event itself. And so in a roundabout way, he's reporting on the event, but through his personal experience, usually an altered experience, if you will. So I'm sorry if this is not going to fly for the kids' content, but hey, this is reality. This is real stuff. So let's look at the publication date and see when this came out. I bet it came out in the 80s, but gotta double check. 88. Okay, yeah, so it's like the end of the 80s. It talks about Ronald Reagan a lot in politics. Hunter S. Thompson he did a lot of political writing, and that's pretty cool. So there's a lot of politics in this. But this is Generation of Swine. That's an interesting name to unpack. Unfortunately, it reflects the American. The degradation of the American dream, in a way. I'm sorry if this offends fellow Americans. I don't mean to, but it's all in the book. I mean, hey, I'm just reporting it like it is. Don't shoot the messenger. But he talks about the slow decline of the American dream in a way. He doesn't speak of that directly usually, but it's sort of implied in the way he's writing and how he's describing politics. A lot of this in the book, he kind of thinks, oh, the world's going to end, and all these things, and here we are. I mean, it's been quite a while since this book came out, and it's fascinating because history always repeats itself. That's always going to be the case. There's things that happen in history that we have to learn from, and without looking back to see patterns, we're going to have the same mistakes. So reading a book like this, I think, is good practice. Like old literature holds the keys to the future there, because everything repeats. I find in different ways. It doesn't come back in the same way. It comes back with a variation. The Hemingway book is a good example of that we talked about. Understanding the life of the early 20th century, the pitfalls of the world wars. All this, it comes back in different formats. We live in a relatively peaceful age of civilization, if you can say. But there's still things that are happening that are just kind of repeats of prior historic events. I'm being very general. because I don't have specifics, but it's something that I know to be true, but I can't really prove it right now because I'm just ad-libbing. We got to do this in one take. So yeah, there you go. Hunter S. Thompson. Another cool thing, another book that I had on the list was the Book of Revelations by King James. And I got that because I read this. In the book, he tells you if you're going to be a writer, you have to own the Book of Revelations because of how quotable it is and how fantastic the quotes are. And he's absolutely right. Some of those quotes are just mind-blowing, sort of apocalyptic, but yeah, it's kind of cool. He was in a point of time where the apocalypse was quite real due to the arms race and the Cold War. It was the late 80s. So that was a reality for people at that time. There was a real sense that there was an impending doom because of the nuclear arms race. And all that is kind of it's in this book, so you can relive that experience if you read this, and you can also, his other books too are great for that same reason. So yeah, get that one. I'm gonna put it. I think I'll put it right there too, right in front of Bret Hart. I think that's gonna be a nice spot for it. I may move it. All right, so we had to cut there because I kind of got off track. I had to move the books a little bit. And I pulled out the next set of books that I want to talk about, which is Margaret Atwood's Mad Adams series. This is an incredible trilogy of science fiction books. Compared to the Sprawl series, I think I don't know which one's better. I think I have to choose both because they're so engrossing that they take you into the world that these authors are trying to create. And much like how William Gibson tells his stories through technology, this is a very similar way. There's a lot of technology involved in these books that I think is very fascinating. These are relatively newer books. We'll have to look at the publication date to get an idea on the time frame. Come on, what is it? 2003, so this is 21st century science fiction. So this is still pretty new, but with these books, it feels like we've come a long way as well with how technology is. And so reading these books now compared to back then, I think it's very interesting. I actually read this in 2010 maybe? So I reread this, and then I went and then got the other books to finish off the series. So I finished this in the summer, and man, it's fantastic. Like this was a great series. The books are told from multiple characters' points of view, and you have a large story that has a wide arc of characters, and they develop in interesting ways. And the story gets told using time a lot, flashing back. I don't usually like that in stories. I like to have a good, solid, linear storyline. But jumping back and forth in time can be done well, and these books do it very well. So that's something to be said about how these stories work. Time is very important to how the story evolves and how you experience the story. All the characters are really well written, and again, if we talk about how characters are treated as sacred, Margaret Atwood does not treat her characters as sacred as other stories would, much like how William Gibson focuses on telling the story using characters. It's done in the same way, because a lot of the characters don't continue through these stories. They do, but in different ways. And so that's something to be said about how these books are written and how you experience the characters in the storyline. And I think that's fantastic. When your sole focus is telling the story, you're doing it right. If you're telling the story because you have to preserve a character or have your character's motives come true in a certain way, I think that's not the best way to do it, because you have to still ask, does that fulfill the purpose of the story? And if the answer is yes, then I think that's a good way of telling a story. But yeah, I'm talking I guess, theories of writing and stuff. I'm not a writer, I guess you could say. I'm just I read books. Okay, so yeah, these are fantastic. I don't know, there's not much else I want to say because there's still lots more books that we're going to talk about. But yeah, this is a great series to check out, and I'm going to put that right there. Burning Chrome was on the list. It's right here. I don't want to talk too much about that. It's a series of short stories, so it's hard to sort of talk about because of that. There's many different stories in there, so yeah, go read that one too. It's good. Johnny Mnemonic is a part of that short story. So Johnny Mnemonic was actually a short story before it was made into a Keanu Reeves film that had Dolph Lundgren and that rapper, what's his name? Shoot, I feel like an idiot. I should know that. Anyways, another book was On My Way to Paradise. I had to make a makeshift cover because the cover was falling apart. This is very, very, very cool because I got this in a Take a Book, Leave a Book box up the road, and I put in Dante's Inferno and I got this instead. And man, this was a science fiction powerhouse of a book. I never read the author's writing before. So what's his name? David Wolverton. What a fantastic writer he is. Holy smokes. And this was done in 1987, and then this publication was 1989. So it was part of the 20th century, late 80s science fiction world. And again, very, very similar to how William Gibson writes and explains technology. That author uses technology to further the story in unique ways and doesn't hold your hand while explaining the story too, which I find to be refreshing. It allows the reader to make that world exist for themselves. It's very interesting. It touches on some pretty heavy-duty topics of genocide, planetary genocide, space travel, biotechnology, really cool things of virtual reality training. The story is a person is exiled from Earth and he's going to another planet, but he has to be trained to fight these like a group of people on the other planet. So they're training through virtual reality. So it's fascinating. It's a really cool concept, and where we are in technology, in the history of technology now, we're sort of at a place where virtual reality is becoming more feasible. And so that is in this book as a concept of virtual reality training and how that can be told as a story. So that's a really good book to pick up if you can find it. I'm not sure if it's in print. I was able to find it on the Amazon Associates list so that I could put the link in the article. So you could find it. So yeah, check that one out. It's pretty fantastic. So I think I filled up this whole chunk of books here. This didn't look the way it was before I started, and so we were able to, on camera, create a new physical space of books. So isn't that pretty cool? I'm glad we were able to ad-lib this and do it in this format. And it's kind of funny because that also comes back to Bret Hart again as a wrestler. As a champion, you have to perform. You have to be able to perform for at least an hour. You have to do an hour performance. So yeah, you can't go to the bathroom. You can't have a drink of water. You can't have something to eat if you're in the ring and performing in front of people. So I wanted to, I guess, embed that concept into this, and embody it, if you will. So yeah, there you have it. To be the champ, you gotta beat the champ, and so that's what I'm trying to do here. Do it all in one go. But I did have to take a break too, so I didn't do it all in one sitting. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to do here as well, is prove that point. Okay, cool. So we're gonna do some other books. I'm gonna move the camera up, and we'll keep going. All right, thanks. Ho ho ho! All right, well, we're back. We left off talking about to be the champ, you gotta beat the champ. And so you may be wondering why I'm wearing this hood and wearing different clothing. Well, for one, the next book we're going to talk about is a little spooky, so I thought this hood would be appropriate. And the other thing, too, is that when you're the champion, they have to beat you. You don't have to beat them. So it's not outside of the realm of reality to take a few shortcuts, if you will. Editing is a film shortcut. You can cut things together. So I already went and had Christmas and came back. It was a fantastic time. I love spending time with my family. Had a great Christmas, and I got some more books, so that's pretty cool. So here we are. I'm all showered up and I'm ready to go. So here's because it's Christmas, you know, we'll talk about Die Hard because I was traveling. And so in the movie Die Hard, the guy says instead of having a hot shower, you just take your socks off and make fists with your toes on the rug. That's good. I've done that. But nothing beats a hot shower after you travel. So there's also that to think about. But do what you will. If he hadn't taken off his socks, would that be a different movie? Maybe. Who knows? Anyways, we will now talk about our last book in the reading list. Before I introduce it, I'm going to just quickly talk about some of the other philosophic texts because this is my philosophy row of books. I've omitted some of these texts because I want to leave them as Easter eggs for you to investigate on your own. I think philosophy as a discipline is I feel like it's a universal discipline for people to work with throughout their entire life. So I'm just going to do a quick promo about philosophy because I think it's important. A lot of these books, you know, they cover a wide range of subjects, including the books that I read this year. But when it comes down to it, philosophy really promotes critical thinking and investigation of concepts for yourself and trying to determine some sort of truth for yourself. Absolute truth is difficult to speak of because that's concrete truth. But really what you end up finding is that it has to be truth good enough for the situation you deal with. That's kind of maybe a big concept to talk about and just to off a whim say it. But hey, why not? This is my video. I'm the champion. So, philosophy. You know, you should try and read a few philosophy books and have a few in your collection. I got into philosophy through my fine arts degree. I needed some credits to fill it up, to fill up the degree requirements. So I got really into cognitive science, logic and language, and as a result, I read a lot of philosophy books. I took a philosophy of science course, and that was absolutely fantastic when it comes to understanding what theories are, what science is, what pseudoscience is, and knowing the difference between the two, what conjecture is, what a good theory stands for. It's all very good stuff to just know, especially in a world, a digital world that seems to change very rapidly and where information is not always what it seems. And so I think that's a good segue into the last book, which is Dennis Wheatley's The Devil Rides Out, a black magic story. So when we talk about misinformation, things that aren't what they seem nowadays, that's kind of a nice fit into the concepts of the occult and black magic. You deal with the concept of initiation, which we have found in the Carlos Castaneda book. That has a more anthropologic approach to initiation. But when you deal with black magic and the occult, as it's treated in this book, you deal with initiation in a strong way because when you're worshiping the devil, you sort of have to be initiated into that. You can't just stroll out of your house and I want to worship this and that. You need to be taught how to do things in order to access that true power. So I find that to be very interesting. I think that's a cool concept to play around with. So when you deal with the occult in that way, you do tackle with initiation, and I think there's more to it when you look at today's world, especially when it comes to affiliate marketing. So, reading this book really made me think about other things not related to black magic or the occult. It made me think about how the occult, how those concepts of what an occult is are existing today in variations in other forms. With affiliate marketing, just to quickly give you like a preface to affiliate marketing, this video is in fact an Amazon Associates affiliate marketing promo in a way. All these books are linked to the through my Amazon Associates program that if you were to click the link and buy the book, I would get a commission. So being a touch and go salesperson is kind of how that is. You get to promote products that you're passionate about and be compensated for the work you do. So affiliate marketing is becoming very popular, especially at the end of this decade and going into the next decade, 2020. But there is a world of affiliate marketing and multi-level marketing as well that exists outside of Amazon. Amazon is not the only thing going when it comes to affiliate marketing. There's other groups of digital businesses that thrive on small groups of people controlling information, controlling who's promoting their products as affiliates. And so it's possibly not outside of reality to consider these groups of people maybe cults, with quotes. They're probably not practicing black magic and all that stuff, but in a way they're wanting to initiate somebody properly and control what goes on within that group. And there are particular things that group does that is maybe unique to that group, and so that would be how the product maybe is sold, how what channels to distribute that product through, the type of people that are the prospects for the product. A prospect being someone who would buy that product. The ideal customer profile, you could also say. So there's that to wrestle with. Multi-level marketing too, if you look at that as a whole, that definitely has cult-like tendencies. It's not as bad as people think. Multi-level marketing, I think, gets a bad rap in some cases. But when we're talking about the Devil Rides Out, black magic, and the occult, and groups of people, worshiping things, you sort of have parallels into that. Again, there's initiation to wrestle with certain things that are kept secret until you reach a certain level. There's a multi-level marketing thing that I'm involved with that has levels, and it does like marketing training. So it's not something that I promote a lot or at all, to be perfectly honest. But it's I definitely see that there are connections, when it comes to the occult and cults and black magic, things like that. Superpowers. Some people think that salespeople have superpowers, and they're right in certain ways, but also there's just a lot of skill involved and manipulation of your perception. And that's why, when we've talked about all these books, Bret Hart and wrestling and all that seems to fit nicely into a theme. It's really about making people believe. And for black magic to work, or any magic at all to work, you have to believe it to be true. So, it all kind of fits together. Perception is a pretty cool concept, and a very heavy concept to work with, and something that I think is going to be very important, in the coming decade when we're dealing with the flow of information, misinformation, those sort of scary ideas of things that may not be what they seem. Things change rapidly in the digital world. Information seems to change as well. Sources may not always be correct. all that. It's very a large concept, and I think it's worth investigating, or at least being aware of that. You should be critically thinking. You should be weighing the value of information. You know, you should really put time into investigating things for yourself. Having things spoon-fed to you, I think, is a disadvantage. But you know, there is. It's good to take shortcuts when necessary too, just like a good champion would. Remember, when you're the champ, they have to beat you. You don't have to beat them. So there's a balance. So you really have to take a step back and just really think about the world sometimes. So the Devil Rides Out. It really makes you think very deeply about the world. You know, if we look at the publication date of this is 1934. And the first edition of this book is 1954, so 20 years later. So I think this is Arrow. So I think this is the first edition. I don't know if this actually is. I feel like it is, but I'm not 100% sure. You can never be too sure. But 1934, like this, you know, that's feels ahead of its time. You know, it's 2019. It's going to be 2020 very, very soon. You know, when it comes to history and people, I've already said this in the last segment. You know, history repeats itself. Patterns reemerge as time goes on. They just reemerge in different ways and different variations. So it's really, I feel it's going to be a strong skill to cultivate. You know, when it comes to understanding history. And I think that's going to be more important, just as a tacit skill for people in the future, is to know the placement of history. You know, where things fall into place. You know, what came before what. Because things change as we move on into the future. We're looking back in time, and our perception can change sometimes. So, you know, dealing with black magic, the occult, misinformation, the changing flow of information. Yeah, you know what? Educate yourself. Don't take things at face value. The purpose of this reading list is to give you a foundation of vetted books that I feel are good pieces of literature and nonfiction and fiction that will inspire you and give value to your life. And that's what I think is going to be an important thing as we get older. You know, I'm in my mid-30s now, and I can definitely see the value of having read lots of books. They are a doorway into experience that you don't necessarily have to physically go out and get. And I think that's very cool, because not everyone has a disposable income to go and have you know, vacations and you know, just have real life experience. Sometimes just a good old book can be just what you need, and having a reading list like this, I hope, gives you value. For me, it was a big thing for when I started reading. I was given a reading list from a family friend, and it sort of changed. I guess you could say it maybe changed my life in a way. I don't want to over sensationalize that too much. But it made me think of what people want to spend their time doing. You know, lifelong learning, I feel is pretty important. Being well read is going to be a good thing for the future. So we'll leave it at that. Like I said, the other books I'm going to leave as Easter eggs for you to investigate for yourself. I'll give you a hint. The last few books that I read, they're also movies. So you may already know what they are if you clicked on the article first. Great books, so you should definitely check those out. Like I said, all the Amazon links are in there for easy access. Really, you don't have to buy the books. It does support me, but you shouldn't if you don't feel that if that goes against your belief. You know, I don't want that to affect it. But they're just there for you to see. And above this section here is my prospective reading list. Pretty soon we'll talk about that too as we enter the new year. I've got a lot of books to read this coming year. I got some more books for Christmas too. So I think 2020 is going to be a pretty cool year for reading. I may not read as much as I did this year. That was a lot of books to read. On average is about 3 books a month. You have to devote a lot of time to that, and there's a lot of things that I want to try and accomplish this year as well too. But give that a shot. Try to read about 40 books, or do 3 books a month in 2020, and use this reading list as a foundation to maybe start your journey from, or have the same journey as me. That could be an interesting thing too. When 2 people experience the same piece of art or book, for example, sometimes you have different experiences, but sometimes you can come across similar things having experienced the same thing. So that could be something could be cool for you to do as well. So if you hung in this long, thank you so much. Have a happy holidays and a new year. So 2020 is right around the corner. Are you well read?